Hey everyone, ergo.josh here, and I asked my followers on Instagram what kind of topics they would want to hear me talk about if I were to do a kind of longer podcast format while I draw. So a lot of people were interested in me actually. They wanted to hear what I was interested in or what type of things inspired me in my art. And I realized that these might get really long, but I'll try to edit them in the post so that it's bearable for you to listen to. So I wanted to start with actually what got me interested in art. And while I'm talking, I encourage you guys to think about maybe what inspired you to get started in art, when that was. Maybe it was since the day you were born, like me. But yeah, think about your own reasons and feel free to share below at the end of the video. So I've done a lot of kind of like introspective thinking on this topic, and I wanted to be really real with you guys because I wanted to stand out, be a little bit different from a lot of the other podcasts that I hear about because they have such limited time. But since it's just me, I can really get into things that I feel like are important, that are in the deep past. And I actually learned more about myself while I was composing this video. So yeah, I'm excited to tell you guys more about me and talk about myself. So the truth is that for as long as I can remember, I saw myself as like less than other people. I always had like a really low self-esteem. And I remember, I say it's as long as I can remember because before I lived in the United States, I lived in Germany when I was like really young. Like I basically had like pre-K in Germany, and I even knew how to speak a little tiny bit of Dutch. So, but in Germany, I remember there was a show and tell, regular show and tell in the class. And all these kids had these cool toys. They had these different things that they would show and tell. But I remember that I didn't have anything, and all I had was my book bag. And so I drew out explaining every single little detail about my book bag, and even the teacher was getting bored. I remember this so clearly and vividly. And like, I just knew like, oh, I really got to try to be the best I can because I don't have anything interesting like all these other kids. And even from then, I knew I just was a little bit cut below everyone else. Not that I knew it, but that's just how I perceived everything else. And then moving on, when I got a little bit older, going to school in the United States, I always had a kind of less than general social skills. I was always very shy. People were like, oh, he's shy, it's a phase or something like that. And I was always aware that I wasn't really doing what other kids were doing. I always knew I couldn't really relate to them. And this was just something that continued for pretty much the rest of my life. However, another young memory I had, a very old memory, was my first feelings of success and my first feelings of belonging were related to art. I remember this very well, I used to trace from coloring books. I would bring those tracings to school, and during snack time, I remember there would be a few people come to my seat and ask me for different drawings that I had traced. And I was so happy to give it to them, and they were so overjoyed to have it. And I really remember feeling like I was like, oh, I'm at the top now, I'm popular. I remember, I don't know if this is real, but I remember the teachers smiling at me, I was just like, I was so happy, so like, overjoyed to be able to connect with people in this way. I would come home and I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to trace these for this person in class. They wanted this. I'm going to trace it for them and give it to them in class. And it was just a great time. And although this might seem like I'm getting into saying that, oh, I draw because, I didn't have anything else to do, it quickly began to be something that makes me feel like there might be some sort of innate thing in people that makes them interested in art. Because I remember one time I did something really bad. I plagiarized art for my first time, like in like kindergarten or something. I remember we were turning in assignments into our little cubby hole things. And there was a student who drew like a really good picture of Bugs Bunny. And I saw him turn it in, and I'm like, I want to do that. I want to say that I made it. And so I took his drawing and put it in my cubby hole. And I was like, yeah, I did this. I made this. And that was terrible. And I remember getting in trouble for it pretty quickly. But that was kind of weird because even then, even though I knew I didn't create it, I had an affinity for high quality art. I was like, oh, I like that. I want to say that I did it. And then later on in first grade, I remember I was into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I had a Blue Eyes White Dragon card. And I don't know if it was just one of we don't need to get into the details. But Yeah, I remember I had a card and I was drawing it on an 8.5 by 11 wide ruled sheet of paper, and I was very proud of it. And I was really trying to make it work, to make it look good. I was erasing, and other students weren't that interested in drawing at that time. You know, every kid likes to doodle, but I had my pencil and I was trying to copy every little detail on this tiny little game card onto a sheet of paper. And so now I'm looking back and I'm like, well, maybe there is something different than just, nurture that causes you to be interested in art. But as I got older, I kind of moved on into different areas of art. I was really into crafts. I loved art class. I got really into origami at some point. I was using glue and making these flying birds. And then I got into a lot of manga and anime. I was getting those kind of books at the bookstore. But then one day my mom was like, why don't you draw real people? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to get a portrait book and buy all these pencils, and I'm going to learn how to draw people. And I really enjoyed that. It was great. I started drawing eyes and noses and mouths, and I felt like I was making a lot of progress. My first portrait that I did was I drew 2 eyes, I drew a nose, I drew a mouth, and then I made it into a face. And it looked absolutely terrible, but I really enjoyed it. And about a year into it, I was immediately getting a lot of attention in school. Like, I was becoming known as, the guy that draws really well. And I absolutely loved that. It felt like the core of my being. Like, that's what I have to give to the world. That's who I am. And so as I got into high school, I got really serious because I really wanted to take those advanced art classes. I hated the basic ones where you just had to do what the teacher told you to do. I wanted to take the AP art course where you could do whatever you wanted. I wanted that prestige. The art teachers absolutely adored me in school, because at that point, of course, I hadn't been interested in anime. And yeah, I started getting all these art supplies. I was so into art supplies. That's what I spent all my money on, getting the best pencils, the best paper, all of the best techniques, the needed erasers and everything. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to that. And I saw my self-esteem increased a little bit, but I still saw myself as less than, because I couldn't really relate to a lot of the kids. I didn't do almost everything that normal kids would do. I felt like an outcast a lot of the time. But when it came to art, that's what people knew me for. I got the senior, what do you call it? I can't remember. It's pretty much a name they give to iconic people for every class for different topics, like best dressed, most popular, and I got most artistic. So it was clear, like, everyone knew I was a kid that drew, but that was it, and at that point I had completely developed a belief that my value is in the work that I do and nothing else. It's not me as a person, it's absolutely just my art and what I do. I didn't feel like there was any reason for anyone to desire anything about me other than my art. I felt like I was still less than, I was undervalued, I guess, but I also felt like I knew that I didn't have much to give out, and I felt like, I was just undesired. But my value was in my art. And in the past 5 years since I've graduated, a lot of that has begun to change. I've experienced a lot of acceptance and appreciation for myself, for just me as a person, and not just related to my artwork. But at the same time, I feel like art is a wholesome part of me. Like, even if I became the most popular person in my environment right now, I wouldn't just stop doing art because, oh no, yeah, I'm accepted now. I don't need to draw to impress people. Like, that's not what it is. It's really part of me now. I love it. I absolutely adore it, and I love it more than I've ever loved it in my entire life. So thinking back, it's like, I really wonder what if it's like one thing, or if it's just all of these things that came together to make me who I am today. So I hope I didn't bore you guys too much with my, sap life story. But yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I'm sure you've come up with many similar stories, or have something that you can relate to, and I'd love to hear it. I'm going to read all of the comments and respond to them. I'm really interested in seeing how other people were influenced in art, and how you were able to make use of it, or if you dropped off or now getting back into it. I want to hear all about that. So yeah, subscribe for more art talks. If you like my drawings, make sure to subscribe. I'm going to be posting a lot more progress videos of my artwork. Since I draw so much, I don't really have time to post all the videos on Instagram like I used to, so I'm just keeping them all for videos here. Yeah, so I'm going to continue to talk about more stuff. Feel free to leave suggestions as well, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.